All right. We got Dave, we got Law, and we are doing a draft today, boys, of all the teams that did not make the playoffs last season. 14 of them, seven in the East, seven in the West. And the way this game works is you guys are trying to draft the best roster of teams possible for this following year. And so whoever has the best roster of teams that accumulates the best cumulative record with all those teams wins the draft. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
That
as long
sounds
as the
great.
winner gets a steak dinner or something.
Okay. Loser has to buy though. And
There you go.
since I'm the moderator, I'm just in it too.
It's a
But
free ride.
the way this is gonna work to decide who gets the first pick, I have a silly little game for us, and it's a simple trivia question. And the trivia question is, who is the team that had the worst record in the NBA last year?
Dave, I don't know who you might have
I-
picked, but
I can't remember.
It has to be the Detroit Pistons.
It's the Pistons. It's the Pistons. But that's not the game. The game is, and the first person to give me an answer wins, the correct answer. Or whoever gets closest, I guess. How many wins did the Pistons have last year?
20.
Law, what do you
You're
guess?
guessing you're guessing 20, 17.
The answer is 17.
Wow.
The answer is
Wow.
17. Law, did you know, or was that just a guess?
It was partially a guess, but I also rewatched a game from every team over the summer. And I remember I did the Pistons first because for a reason.
Awful. Yeah. I hope it was an early game.
It was a game that I was actually in attendance for.
Oh.
So I was like, I've seen this before. And now I'm making sure that you all see it.
Well, that being said, Law, you have the first pick of the draft. And again, there are seven teams from the West, seven teams from the East. From the West, we have the
Right.
Pelicans, the Thunder, the Mavs, the Jazz, the Blazers, Rockets, Spurs. From the East, we have the Raptors, the Bulls, the Pacers, Wizards, Magic, Hornets, and Pistons. Who would you take for the first pick of this draft?
First pick of this draft. I'm going to go with the team with a rookie of the year candidate and an MVP candidate in the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't feel great about it because the Thunder have interesting ways of going through regular seasons, but I just feel like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is too good, especially with the year that he is coming off of. Like when you have a year where you ascend to all NBA status, especially first team all NBA status, like you have arrived as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like with Chet, the roster is more complete. Whereas last year they were undersized at pretty much all the front court positions. Now they have some length. They have something that completes their team a little bit more. They have all kinds of guys who are going to be playing hard, trying to prove themselves to the organization. And when you're led by a guy as good as Shai is, I think that team is going to break through this season.
Where are they finishing this season in the West?
Where in the West? They're definitely in the play-in tournament. I'll tell you that. But you know what? I'll give them. I'll give them a 7th seed.
7th. Oh, is that too high or too low, Dave?
I think that's a little bit ambitious. The West is just stacked, and I mean, I could go ahead and make my pick, because I'll just piggyback on this point I'm making. But I'm going to go with the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, when they were healthy, that was the 1 seed in December. If they can stay healthy, now this has been the big trick with them, right? If they can stay healthy, that's a pretty good team. It's well balanced. It has good size. They're great at offensive rebounding. I mean, the question mark obviously is Zion Williamson, because he is their ceiling breaker. And so if he's able to play, if he can give them 65 games, 70 games, this is a team that should make the playoffs, not just the play-in. Last year, they still somehow managed to win like 42 games. I think that, expectations being if they stay healthy, this is a team that should win 45, 46 games. So I'd put them ahead of Oklahoma City. And I know, like, Oklahoma City, it's a big breakout candidate for a lot of people. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an all-NBA guy. The Chet Holmgren, like the defense probably will boost them quite a bit. I just don't buy them for this season. Now, next season, I'm on the same page as you, but I just think the West is so loaded. And I want to look back at what just happened. I mean, last time we saw them healthy, the Pelicans were really, really good. So I think that they could do that again.
You think if the Pelicans, let's say everyone's healthy, full season, forever, do they make the conference finals?
I don't know about that because the playoffs are a different beast, but I do think that this is a team that has a chance to be top 5 in the West, like maybe even a home court advantage playoff team. I mean, they're very good when everybody's out there at the same time. I mean, it's sort of like the Clippers, which Law I know has a lot of experience with. When they're all on the court, they're trouble.
Well, we got go for it, Law.
I really should be picking the Pelicans. The reason I'm not is because, one, I saw the Pelicans in the play-in tournament, a play-in tournament game that, honestly, I saw them in New Orleans April 1st, and it was like, okay, New Orleans is going to completely bypass the play-in tournament. They should have a top 6 locked up. They lose. They enter the 9-10 game. They had no business being in that 9-10 game, and Shea outplayed BI in that game. And so, like, 2 days point, if healthy, you love them. But I also just ranted over the weekend about if healthy because I'm just like, there are teams that is going to have issues with that. And the Pelicans are already the most damaged team in the league. It hasn't even started yet. And Trey Murphy's out. Najee Marshall's out. Jose Alvarado's out. I'm missing the dude, Dave.
But Zion's out there. Zion is healthy.
Zion's healthy, but Zion's pick and roll rotations ain't healthy. So I have concerns even when they're fully formed. I like them. They're powerful. Yes, they were the number 1 seed when Zion got the hamstring injury. That team is really good, but it's like how many games are you reasonably giving them, Dave, for keeping those 2 guys, BI and Zion, on the floor? There's 82 games in the season. Can we get 50? They played 12 together last year. I'm just saying the bar is low for those dudes. I gotta see it. And even when they're healthy, I don't know about the rim protection on one end of the floor, and I don't know about the shooting on the other end. There's a lot of questions with that team.
Regular season is all about offense. I think that team, when healthy, is going to score, and they're going to score a lot. And that's what I'm pinning it on. They get 65, 70 games out of BI and Zion. This is a team that they should be in the top 6, not play in.
Okay, so we got 2 teams from the West off the board. Law, who are you taking with your second pick?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead with the Mavericks now.
This could not be a worse pick. Law,
I'm picking teams that I don't. We're picking these teams for a reason. I will say that. There's a reason why we're discussing 14 teams that did not make the postseason. But with Dallas, I just feel like, once again, I'm just going with the player. Luka Doncic is that dude. He's a first team guy. He's arguably the top on-ball creator in the entire league. He's got relief in Kyrie Irving for a full season. Again, what a Kyrie Irving full season actually entails is the biggest variable of all for that team, especially offensively. And I don't love the guys around them. We're talking about Grant Williams, a 30-minute player, which I think is, you talk about ambitious. That's ambitious. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I'm giving the rest of these teams a look, and someone's going to break through in the West. I'm just going to take my bets on the dudes who are considered the best in the NBA from a player standpoint.
Dave, you don't like that pick?
No, I don't like that pick, man. The Kyrie Irving situation is just a little bit too unpredictable, we'll say. And they're starting 2 rookies. I just don't know. They lost JaVale McGee, which has been proven to not be a great thing.
Yeah, what is JaVale being a loss actually mean?
It's not really a loss, but they're starting 2 rookies, and Kyrie Irving is, we'll just say, a question mark. We just don't know what we're going to get. If he's going to be out there, we know the offense is probably going to be pretty good. I think the defense has a chance to be pretty bad, especially with rookies and a rookie big man anchoring your defense. That's not like a great thing. The West is stacked. Again, they're going to have a very hard schedule. Got to play the Pelicans a bunch of times, right? And like we just said, BI and Zion are going to be out there, and that's going to be tough for them. So, yeah, don't like the Mavs pick. Don't like the Mavs pick. And honestly, Law, it was just such an easy opportunity to go East because you mentioned one of these teams might break out in the West. I actually think the Indiana Pacers are just poised to break out in the East. This is a team that could be in the top 6. The East is kind of bad. Toronto, I think, has gotten worse. The Bulls, obviously, no Lonzo, so things are still kind of the same for them.
Dave's dropping his whole draft board. He's like,
I'm telling you,
Vlade Divac's front office right now.
That's it. And I'm telling you right now, the Pacers are my pick, my next pick, because I think that they could make the playoffs in the East.
They could.
They're going to score, and again, that's what matters in the regular season.
What is their floor then?
I think their floor is play-in at this point. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton is a guy who I think he's probably going to be an all-star this season for the Pacers. I think that when you look at what he was able to do in the World Cup, that sometimes can indicate a little bit of a leap coming. And this is a guy who was already pretty good. So, you couple that with what I think is going to be a more mature team this year, another year with Rick Carlisle, more creative offense because, you're able to do more with Tyrese Halliburton. It's a team that's poised to break out. The East is just also easier. The top is good. It's really top heavy, but man, there's some sad sack franchises. The 17-win Pistons, are in the East. So
you're leaking your draft board, Dave. Come on now. Law, who do you want with your third pick, Law?
I mean, shoot, like I feel like Dave. I'm not gonna let Dave have a monopoly on the East. But I'm just so uninspired by that entire conference, man, right now. The teams left. I'm gonna grab the Bulls before Dave messes around with him. And the reason for the Bulls is this. They have to be good. Like they are so stuck into who they are. They re-signed Vooch. DeMar is going into the last year of his deal. Zach LaVine is still there. I just feel like they're going to be a little bit better. I liked how they finished last year. They almost snuck and took the playoff spot that the Miami Heat got, the 8th seed. They obviously ended the Nick Nurse era in the play-in tournament last year. They were significantly better when Patrick Beverley joined the team. Patrick is gone, but Javon Carter replaces him. I think Javon is a similar player. And I think they're wising up, and they're not even going to start one of those guards. They're not going to start Ayo Dosunmu. They're looking like they're going to start Kobe White. And the Bulls actually defended somehow. They defended really well last year under Billy Donovan, despite having Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic take up 3 of their starting spots. And the reason they just were really smart about how they were going about being aggressive. They pretty much never play zone. I think they have a good idea of how they want to play. The benefit to continuity is that you're probably going to start better than some other teams that are trying to figure some things out. And I think Kobe White is a guy who enhances everybody else on the other end of the floor, which is where they were weak. If Kobe White can be dynamic as another guy who can be on the ball and off the ball, which is going to be the role for a Chicago Bulls point guard with Zach and DeMar being on the ball as much, I think that team can be a good candidate to break through.
Okay, Dave.
I just think that they've got sell potential, right? Like this is a team that, I mean, they could pull the plug and then you're stuck and they're aiming for a lot.
That's definitely the downside.
And I think I must have thrown you a curveball by talking about the East because man, you just glossed right over a top 10 offense sitting right there. A better offensive rating than the Golden State Warriors last year. The Utah Jazz have no reason to want to lose this season. They got John Collins. I think he makes them a lot better. They're already pretty good, by the way. They won, 37 games last year. This is a team that I think is poised to go for it and maybe try to make the playoffs, definitely the play-in. That I heard that they were in on the Drew Holiday sweepstakes. So clearly, organizationally, they feel like, hey, we have enough assets that it's okay if we try to win some games. And by the way, Utah fans tend to value that, right? Like make the playoffs is just as important as anything else. So I mean, I think Utah is going to be my next pick. And man, all of a sudden I'm just having a great draft, Law. Thank you.
You know what? You're welcome. For your Utah pick, I feel so much better if they didn't have some of the worst ball handling in the league. That's my main concern with them. I love the Jazz front court. I love Walker Kessler. Lowry was legitimately great, and Will Hardy's super creative about how he gets Lowry the ball. Like you look at all the offenses in the league, Lowry's not a big on ball threat, but Will Hardy has that dude coming off screens, getting him into every spot on the floor, and that makes Lowry really efficient. Everybody
I
else
think Lowry's due. I think he might be an All NBA guy this year. I think that he's like on the cusp.
He was really close last year.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he finished the year, I think the spot between him and Julius Randle, it was easier to pick Randle, a guy who was playing every damn minute for Tom Thibodeau and a playoff team, versus Lowry, who after the All-Star break, the Jazz took a lot of air out of the tires. My concern with them is the backcourt. I don't think they have, even in this age of de-emphasizing point guards, they're in a really rough spot.
I don't know, man. I trust a young bull when it comes to crunch time, man. He's a 40% three-point shooter for his career. And also, man, you don't have to handle the ball as long as you put it in the basket. And this team did that a lot last year.
I agree. I like them a lot better with Mike. But now I got to think about who else and am I going to pick? Because you went with a guy who, again, good players. Larry Markkinen was an all-star, right? And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of those guys left on this board that I trust, but a team that I want and I don't want you to have is the Orlando Magic.
Good pick, Law.
Going back.
Good pick, Law. Great pick, Law.
That was my next pick, Law.
Best pick of the draft.
I'm going back to the well of who played a lot better to close last year, right? I talked about the Bulls, the push that they made. They made playoffs, or they made the play in. The Orlando Magic were horrible to start the year. And just like I was talking about the Utah Jazz, the backcourt situation, when Orlando started most of the first 20 games of the year, not having Markelle Fultz or any other worthy point guard, like they had Franz Wagner starting at point guard, which on one hand, that's great for Franz Wagner's future skill set. The fact that a player like him had so many on-ball reps, so many pick and roll reps. Paolo Banchero, same thing as a rookie coming out of Duke. But on the other hand, they were like 5-20 to start. They were about 500 the rest of the way. They were in the hunt for a play-in spot until like the last week or two of the season. And then they were like, all right, we're going to reintroduce Bol so we can protect our lottery pick situation. That team, they have a messy guard situation still, but they have a bunch of options. I think Markelle is going to be motivated in a contract year. They have all those young guys that they've been developing. Maybe this is the year Jalen Suggs pops. Cole Anthony, same thing. He's motivated because he's in a contract year. They are just huge. They have a lot of positional size. All those guys are locked in. I think Jamal's got a great program down there, and they're going to be hard to play against, even if they're not overly talented. The shooting is going to be a concern.
And watch out. Hey, Goga Batadze is a guy that I think is poised to have a really good season. If he can be healthy, I think that's a huge boost for them. And, one of the things when Drew Holiday got traded, the place I wanted him to wind up was Orlando. Because if you think about it, they could get like a Drew Holiday type of guard. I mean, I even a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, floated the idea of trying to sign Russell Westbrook on a minimum, just a high level lead guard who can just do stuff. They haven't really had that, who can do stuff on both ends, especially. This team might try to go get a guy. I could see them making a push. They have so much young talent. I love the Orlando Magic, and you stole my pick.
Shout out to Georgia.
Well,
no, real talk. Shout out to Goga and shout out to Georgia, man.
All right. Well, guys, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but my next pick, they landed the number one pick in the draft. And if he plays 55, 60 games, The San Antonio Spurs are going to win a lot of them.
Wait,
Now,
so you have the Spurs doing better than the Raptors.
yes, I just am not a believer in the Toronto Raptors at all. I don't think that that's going to go well. I'm going to let Law have that. But I want to talk about the Spurs because I think the Spurs are actually going to be decent. They're not going to be good. And maybe they'll make the play in, although I don't think so. But they have a chance to actually be pretty good. I mean, they've got a bunch of good players. They were incredibly, we'll say, unhealthy last year, but guys missed a lot of time last year, and I don't think they're going to miss the time this year. Obviously, Wembanyama, it's pie in the sky to think he's going to play more than 60 games. I just don't believe that's in the cards. But if he plays 50, I think that gives him a really good shot to win, 30 of those. That guy is incredible, and I'm putting my money behind Victor Wembanyama. And then the Spurs organization, because I just think that they do want to win basketball games this season. And whether that means they're going in for the play-in or not, I don't know. But I do think it's going to be different than it was last year where guys were missing a lot of time. And I trust that organization, and I think Victor Wembanyama is going to be one of the greatest players to ever play. So
you also think the Spurs are going to be better than the Rockets?
I think the Rockets stink.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Well, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, here's my thought. Give me the Rockets now. Because, look, I'm going back to a team that you got to flush the last 3 years a little bit here and think about we're going ahead here. The Houston Rockets do not have an incentive to tank. I think we brought this theme up before. Like, the Rockets were the worst team in basketball over the last 3 years, post-bubble. Most dysfunctional situation in the league. Dave and I have discussed this before on the mic. The reason I'm going to pick the Rockets now is because that team cannot tank. They signed 2 veterans in Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. And while the shooting on that team might be bottom 5, I can tell you that defensively, between Ime Udoka, between VanVleet's ball pressure, between Dylan Brooks' willingness to defend heads of snakes, like Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be someone who I think is going to establish himself as an improving rover defender. That team is going to be locked in on that end of the floor. I don't think they're going to be good offensively at all. I just think the shot selection is going to be messy. But they have talent. They have depth. They have youth and energy, which, again, first quarter of the season, they're going to be a pain to play. And Ime Udoka is going to be looking to reestablish himself. And that organization, again, they cannot tank. Their draft pick is spoken for. So they need to be as good as possible to avoid the embarrassment. I think that does come through. I think you can only be as bad as they've been for so long. And they put actual money and funds behind improvement. And I think this is my 5th pick or whatever. I think that's a good, I think I gotta make those points when taking them.
Yeah, I'm very high on Jabari Smith and Amen Thompson. I mean, that guy's athleticism is just off the charts. So, I mean, if something pops for them, I think it's those 2 guys that take them above the Spurs. But I'll still take Wemby. Man, I think by default I have to go with Toronto here, just in case they don't, kind of pull the ripcord and blow things up. Pascal Siakam is an All-NBA player. I mean, he's one of the top 15 guys in the league. And I think if you got a guy like that, you're going to be at least fighting for that 9 or 10 spot, no matter who's out there. They also have Dennis Schroeder, who had a great World Cup, although I don't know how much that'll translate. But we also saw him last year. He was excellent defensively at point of attack for the Lakers. But they've got a new coach, and you never know what things are going to look like with the new coach. What's the learning curve for all those guys? But I think that with Schroeder, with Siakam and with Jakob Poeltl, you got a decent baseline. So as long as they don't, become sellers, I think that they're in the mix for like that 10 spot in the East.
Okay,
I just don't believe in them. I just don't believe in them.
Man, I'll say I really wanted the Raptors because Masai don't believe in blowing things up. Like everybody seems to stay a year longer than they should in Toronto, except for Kawhi. So when it comes to the Toronto Raptors,
Kawhi might say he stayed a year longer than he wanted to.
Hey, I don't. My thing with the Raptors, I do wonder if they actually become buyers because they were so interested in Dame, and I see the group that they have. You mentioned Pascal. You mentioned like OG Anunoby to me is always ranked lower than he should on these best top 100 player lists or whatever. That dude, as a small forward, especially one who's not the main guy, he performs. I don't know what the hell they're doing with Scotty Barnes. It feels like they're going to do Scotty Barnes in the lineup the same way Nick Nurse was doing them. But maybe that's their best version of their team. Like this is a team that punted the center position, and then by the deadline they're like, we got to get it. We got to get somebody there. Like positionless only matters if you can actually perform and have guys that complement each other. And they needed again a more complete roster. Jakob is on the team to start this year. So even I'm interested to see how they're going to go. That's a high floor team to me, Dave. So I'll praise you for that pick. I'm going to go with a wild one because we only have 4 teams left, and I don't really like these teams. And I will go with the madness that is the Charlotte Hornets. The less I say about this team, the better. My only point with this team, Steve Clifford coaches them, and that dude got them to defend at a high level. Mark Williams, I think, is a really good fit for the mistakes that he's going to have to clean up in the backcourt. But also, they just have a lot of talent. Like, they don't have to rush a Brandon Miller because you have LaMelo Ball, because you have Terry Rozier, because even though the Hornets, it's funny to me, everyone who hates veteran players not being in the league always points to the Hornets as if Gordon Hayward's not there. I feel bad for Gordon Hayward, man. But he's there. Like, you don't have to rush any of these dudes. You know, PJ Washington's a decent player for his position. They have obvious issues if guys start missing games, and that was the case last year. Gordon always misses games. LaMelo is very, very
injury prone
fragile
at this point.
Right. And like you just, you do have young players at center who you're not going to ask them to do anything with the ball, but I just believe in Steve Clifford getting the very most out of that team. And I think Steve Clifford deserves about 60 games of LaMelo Ball from the jump. So don't be surprised if the Hornets are better than their narrative.
Steve Clifford's also, he's a point guard whisperer. I want to see him get a chance to actually work with LaMelo for a full season, but I'm not high on them. I think that organization stinks.
They deserve every part of your narrative. And like I said,
just,
I'm not going to say anything else about that.
I just don't trust them at all. I think here I'm going to go wild card, and I'm going to go with the Washington Wizards. And Jordan Poole has an opportunity here to lead the league in scoring. I mean, this guy can score. He is going to have ridiculous usage. He's got decent players around him. I mean, let's not forget Kyle Kuzma's still there. Daniel Gafford's still there. Denny Avdia is still there. Like, they've got some guys around him. And I think that if you can score, you can win games. And even bad teams, if they can put up points, they can win some games. So I like the Wizards a little bit more than even your Hornets pick. But of the teams left, I definitely like them over the Blazers and the Pistons, because we're about to get real sad now.
That's the thing. Law, before you pick, we have 2 teams left. We have the Blazers and the Pistons. You could mess up your entire draft here if you draft wrong, because one really bad season takes the record of your entire team.
Yeah, well, you know what team I'm picking then. I'm picking the Detroit Pistons. They shelled out so much money to make sure Monty didn't take the year off. They got talent. Okay, I want to emphasize this. They got Monte Morris for free. They got Joe Harris for free. Boyan Bogdanovic is still there. Other Thompson twin is ready to. I think he's going to start. Like, shout out to James Edwards, because James saw the Rico Hines clip with All-Stars playing at UCLA. He's been like, oh, he's starting ever since. Monty Williams knows how to build a program from the ashes. That was literally the Phoenix Suns. And so they have all the big men. They have all the ball handlers. It looks like Jaden Ivey's going to come off the bench. That's how locked in Monty Williams is into doing things his way and transforming that team. And Cade Cunningham is going to come back. The team that you saw last year, Cade was done by Thanksgiving. Cade Cunningham is going to come, and he's going to establish himself as Devin Booker light. and that's going to be one of the biggest starting lineups in the NBA, 1 through 5. Like Detroit's not. You talk about the East, Dave. Detroit is here to make sure that they compete, and who knows, they might scratch mid-30s, and maybe they can get a 10 seed.
I mean, like, that's belief in James Wiseman. That's all I can put that on. Cade Cunningham already dealing with some injury stuff coming out of training camp in preseason. That gives me some concern, but he was great in the lead up for Team USA for the select team, to the point where I think a lot of people wished he had been on the World Cup team. I mean, just like his size and ability to handle the ball and play point guard. So their run has been marred by his injuries. And if he had been out there last year, they would have been better. He's a better player than anybody that they had available. So I think makes sense, stands to reason that if he's healthy, they will be better. If they hit 30 games, that's an incredible success for them. I just don't see it happening. And I guess that leaves me with the Portland Trailblazers, who may be really awful. They might be really awful. I mean, now Scoot Henderson, I'm a huge believer. I think eventually he's going to be a great defender. Most rookies are not good defenders. We already know Anthony Simons is one of the worst defensive players in the league, regardless of position. When he tries to guard, he's almost too small to guard, even normal size guard. So, but he can score, and so can Scoot. And Shadon Sharp has a real chance to break out. I love DeAndre Ayton for them. Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton playing together, they're going to own a lot of rebounds. I think that they've got a chance to have a better record than the Detroit Pistons. Their guys are going to play.
My only issue with Portland, I have seen Joe Cronin fire sales, and they are a sight to behold. And they are already, unlike the previous 2 seasons, they are going into the season with the sign already up. And I don't know if there's another team in the league, short of the Washington Wizards, another team that I stuck you with, Dave, that have that same vibe going on. So I think Portland is really going to be fun and intriguing to watch. But from the jump, you got to watch and see what happens with Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Time Lord, even a guy like Matisse Thybulle. And Anthony Simons, the guy you talked about first. I mean, Shadon Sharp's got to play, and I think the backcourt of the future is going to be Scoot and Shadon. Simons is the version of small guard that winds up getting booted as soon as you can get a first-round pick, a good asset back.
Are you saying Jordan Poole Northwest?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because it's the same kind of player. There's a bunch of those guys in the NBA, the combo shooting guard that can get you 20. But when you look at how many of those guys are across the league, you start to be like, oh, they're not a top 20 starting option anymore. And I'm fascinated. And I love the league, Dave. I love that we're talking about these teams as some of the worst teams in the league, probably. But we still have a good reason to watch them. We still have a good reason to see them develop both on the floor and in a team building process.
Yeah, I mean, every single one of these teams, the bad ones, I mean, they've got players that I'm curious about and want to see more of. I mean, again, I think the Charlotte Hornets are just a sorry story, and LaMelo Ball is still compelling, right? I still want to see him do stuff. So, yeah, that's a good point.
So if I have this correctly, Law has OKC, the Mavs, the Bulls, Magic, Rockets, Hornets, Pistons. Dave has the Pelicans, the Pacers, the Jazz, Spurs, Raptors, Wizards, Blazers.
And that's a winning draft right there.
I don't know, Dave. I kind of like Law's team.
I don't know. I don't believe in the Rockets.
I think Law has a very consistent theme throughout his like none of his teams are gonna it feels like they're not just gonna completely tank.
No breakouts.
yeah. But your team, like, it's either gonna be here or it's gonna be like
you're boom bust. It's basketball.
You're kinder than me, Sam, because I don't like a lot of these teams I pick, bro.
Oh,
I love the players. That's what I like. I love the players. I sold my thing was I'm going to bet on players. I'm going to bet on teams that played well the end last season, and I'm going to bet on teams that do not have the same incentive to tank. And after that, all guarantees are off with me.
Just wait until Markelle Fultz averages a triple-double and takes the Magic to the Eastern Conference Finals. Just wait. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
You're the first person I'm hitting.
Well, okay then. That's it for this draft. Let's see who wins at the end of the season.